Amazing how the title slide always kind of usurps my ability to surprise you with what I want to talk about. This whole thing about choice goes back to my first spiritual teacher when I lived in Sydney, Australia, and how he would refer to it as being at choice point. We're always at choice point. Our lives are about making choices. That's what we do. That's how we direct our lives, is by choosing this instead of that. But it's a very powerful thing that we do because it really has a direct impact on how our lives unfold, the choices that we make. I like the word choice. I like its root word, which is choose, which actually comes from the Old English and means to taste or try. Seems reasonable. Seems not like you're making this lifelong commitment to something. You're going to choose it, see how it works out. I don't have the same resonance with the word decide, which comes in a whole different way. Decide is actually Latin. D means off, and side means to kill. So it means to kill off. Not nearly as fun. Of course, these are examples of how the side shows up in our language. Insecticide, homicide, genocide, herbicide. None of them particularly heartwarming. But to try something, to taste something, can be kind of a good idea. And there's this angle to making choices that if you make a choice and it didn't work out the way you wanted, you make another choice. Whereas if you decide on something, in essence, what you're doing is you're killing off all the other options. Now, you might say, well, that's not true anymore because people use decide and choose equally, but they're really not. And I've found that when you go back to the origins of words, that there's an element there that's still around and still impacting the use of that word, whether we're conscious of it or not. So I invite you to quit deciding about things in your life and start choosing. Here's an example. In the wedding ceremony that Barbara and I had for ourselves and have used with countless couples over the many years of our ministry, we have a phrase in it that says, I choose you to be my wife or husband. I choose you to be my partner. We don't say, I've decided to have you be my partner. You see the difference? It's just not the same. So I want to live in that place of choosing. I'm doing it anyway. We're doing it all the time. Ernest Holmes was really clear about that. He said that we cannot live a choiceless life. Every day, every moment, every second, there is choice. If it were not so, we would not be individuals. So this is how we express ourselves into the world, is by making choices, by moving in this direction or that direction, and letting that unfold as our lives. And sometimes we need to be more conscious of what we're doing, because basically, if you're not conscious of your choices, then today you make the same choices you made yesterday, and that you will make tomorrow, because that's just the way you've always done it, or done it for a long time. And that those choices just become automatic, and there's no thought involved, there's no thinking involved, there's no action that takes you in any kind of different direction. It's just the same stuff over and over and over again. And another aspect of choosing, or even deciding, is that sometimes it results in things that we don't really care for. It results in things that bring pain or discomfort or confusion into our lives. And when we have those things happening, and we don't know how to make a conscious choice to change it, or we think that we could actually make a worse choice. If we think that's possible, then we're resistant to actually choosing something else. But it doesn't need to be that way. We really can choose to make our lives the way we want. And if what we choose doesn't turn out the way we imagined, like I already said, you make another choice. And that's really okay. It's good to make choices. It's good to keep that alive, that conscious action in our lives alive, and doing the things that we are here to do without not thinking about it and just having it happen over and over again. But there are 4 indicators that I've found that very clearly point out when it's time to make a different choice. And when we make a different choice, we're going to get a different result. So let's look at these 4 things that I've got that really speak to how we, when we're ready to make that different choice. The first one is when we blame ourselves or others. If you're blaming yourself for anything that's going on, how about changing what you're doing by choosing some other way to be in the world? If you're blaming someone else in your life for the way things are, well, you're choosing that person to be in your life and seeing them the way they're being, and they're being true to their nature, and they're doing what they do because that's what people do. So what are your choices? Well, I'm going to speak to that in a minute, but they're truly infinite. We don't have a limitation on choices. We're actually working on limitation if we try to decide an outcome, but if we're choosing, we have options, and it's all good. So if you're blaming anyone for anything, choose a different way of experiencing that, and you'll get a different result. When we're ashamed of something that we've said or done, or we're ashamed of our family, or we're ashamed of anything in the world, if shame is part of our experience, it's time to make a different choice. And there's nothing that's going on in us that can't be changed. Well, you can't change the past, but you can change how you feel about the past. You can change what relevance you put to the past at any moment. And when you do that, you get a different result. And the different result in those cases are you feel different. I've had lots of times in my life where I've felt like this is just not working. I don't really know what to do. But then I realized I did know what to do. And once I did that and I made a different choice, I got a different outcome. And it's really all about me in that moment, just like it's about you in your life. When you make a different choice, you're absolutely going to get something different in your life. It's unavoidable. Our choices determine our outcomes. They're inseparable. So if you make a choice, you're going to get a result. If you make a different choice, you're going to get a different result. The third one is when we regret something that's happened. And we do have those in our lives, oh, that marriage didn't work. I was going to get that master's degree, but it just didn't happen. So now I can't do the things that I want to do. That's just not true. There's no point in time where a university will refuse to accept you as a student based on your age. So if you want to do something, then there was that person in their 40s that said they wanted to be a doctor. Why not? They could be a doctor, right? Well, no, not really, because I don't have my undergraduate degree, and then I've got to get an advanced degree, and then I've got to do an internships and residency before I could ever be called a doctor. Well, what else you got to do? Why limit yourself thinking somehow that doesn't work? There are plenty of 60-year-old doctors in the world. We can all do what we want to do. We absolutely can. And regretting that something didn't work out the way we want just limits us. The thing that happened isn't limiting us. It's how we are experiencing it that is limiting us. And the last one is when we have a sense of failure. Oh, yeah. Failure is a lie. It's an illusion. Because every time you make a choice, you get an outcome. Now, that may not be the outcome that you wanted or expected, but it is the perfect outcome of that choice. So where's failure in that? Especially when you can see that your choice created the outcome in your life, and by having that outcome, you can observe and decide what you want to do next. No one can tell you can't do something else, that you can't make a different choice. So the idea of failure is a waste of time. So blame, shame, regret, failure don't work. They don't help. If they show up in your life, make a different choice, and you'll get a different result. Because choice has power. And in the power within us, we can do whatever we choose, and we can get whatever outcome we want. This idea of choice is the thing that we are choosing, and it looks like we're choosing it in our lives so that we know what next step to take. But at the same time that you're doing that, when you're choosing what direction to go in, you're also impressing upon spiritual law that that's your choice. And then spiritual law is in partnership with you in creating the outcome you're looking for. Now, I admit that sometimes we have hidden beliefs, hidden ways of experiencing the world that we're not even consciously aware of, but we haven't let them go, and they're still influencing how things are turning out in our lives. So what happens from our choice may not look exactly the way we wanted it to look, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter a flip, because we can make another choice and adjust that. And if something shows up in our life that isn't the way we wanted it to be, how about we ask ourselves, well, what is it in my subjective mind? What is it that I've believed somewhere in the past that I'm still apparently believing now that I'm not aware of? And you really can't ask yourself that question and get an answer. Now, the answer may not come as a little whisper in your ear, but something's going to show up if you ask the question that's going to reveal to you what it is in your consciousness that's holding you back. That's sort of how it works. And the way it may show up again is by being another outcome that you don't particularly like. But if you keep asking the question, you'll get a different outcome. You'll see something that wasn't that way before. And when you do, when you can be the observer in your life, now you're really in charge. And now you're consciously going to change the way you're choosing to do something a little bit different that's going to give you that different outcome. So that being so, we're faced in our lives so often with that situation that seems so difficult. It seems so hard to decide. Well, see there how that one slipped in? It seems so hard to make that choice that's going to work out. Why? Well, because it could be a bad choice. It could be a choice that does not take us where we want to go. What else is new? Haven't you already done that a bunch? I have. But when we know that life is fluid and flexible, we get the opportunity to change it again and again. So let's not be afraid of choosing. Let's be delighted. And if you're choosing and you want to redo it, here's, to me, an excellent example of how to do it. Imagine you're sitting at the keyboard of your computer and you're typing something in, and you hit a key that isn't the one you wanted to hit. You didn't want to touch that one, but you did. Oh, and there it is on the screen, that thing you didn't want. What do you do? Oh, God. Well, you just got to keep it forever, right? Because computers are just like typewriters. And boy, that's when it's there on the paper on a typewriter, what are you going to do? Well, they have this white stuff you can put on, but it's messy. Is it that hard in a computer? Of course not. Oh, well, let's go with this one because this is where it's going to take us. If I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to give you 7 questions. 7 questions here that you can ask yourself when you're faced with an important or a difficult choice. You think it's difficult. It's not difficult. Choices aren't difficult. Do I know I can't make a mistake? Well, you can't. So you're on the keyboard. And what looks like a mistake, you just hit a keystroke. And that's not what you wanted. And it didn't give you what you wanted. So what do? You hit the backspace button. And it's gone, just like that. You do the same thing in your life. Yes, you got a result, just like the thing that looked like a mistake on the screen of the computer, but also you just back up and then do it again. It can be that easy. Choices can be that easy. So let's continue with these questions that I've come with. So you're facing a challenge in your life. You know you've got to make a choice, but which one? Which way to go? What do I do? You choose what's most important. Well, what makes it important? What makes that particular choice more important than something else? Well, because it fits into your life better. Because you don't look at a choice based on a very limited perspective of your life. You look at it how it fits holistically into everything that's going on. Some of these questions will relate to some of those aspects. But the idea is, what feels right? Where are you going with this? How can you work this out? It's hard because we think it's hard. It's challenging because we feel like it's challenging. It's only those things because we say so. In Best of Barbara today, she was talking about it. Nothing's real until you make it real. Oh, but it feels so real. It's so well, it is real. It's real because you made it real. Oh yeah, but this is hard. Well, that's your choice. You've made it hard because that's what you've made real. And how often do we say that? It's hard. Well, you know what? When we say it's hard, that's what we get. And then we can point at all the ways that it's hard in our lives, which just reinforces that the spiritual law is reflecting back into our lives hardness. It's our choice. So what if we say, well, this isn't hard. I can do this. In fact, when I'm treating for someone else, when they come to me and say, this is what's going on in my life, and I really want you to know with me something different, as the person unfolds the dilemma they're in the middle of, and I can see the direction to go, I often say to them, this is easy. I got this. This is so simple to do this. And I just proceed with knowing the truth. We can all do that about ourselves all the time. It's us that makes it hard. So what's important? Where are we going to go with that? The third one is, what choice best fits me? You got to take care of yourself in life. Nobody else is going to make you the absolute whole expression of their being. That's your job. That's what we must do for ourselves. Not in place of other people, but just choosing ourselves really helps. It's a part of this unfoldment in life that we make sure that we're okay. Not at the expense of another, but that we choose to be okay. We choose for things to work out. So what fits me? The next one is, what are all my options? I love this one. Most people aren't willing to look at all their options. And this is often in the conversation. Well, I have to do such and such. You have to do such and such? Yeah, I have to do this thing. No, you don't. What do you mean I don't? You have other options. I don't have any other options. Well, we all have options. We always have options. There's no limit to options. Well, I don't see what you're talking about. Well, you could die. Then it would be a problem, right? Or you could move. Or you could change your name. Or you go on and on and on with these. And what happens when you start looking at these, and the person's going, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Well, yes, you could. I'm not expecting you to do them, but you could. And once you open that floodgate, all these options come out. All these possibilities come out. You don't have to select them, but just knowing that you have multiple options changes the dynamic of the situation. It's worth doing. And you can do it formally. You can sit down with a pen and paper and write all your options down. All the absurd ones, all the ones that you would never choose consciously. Write them all down, as many as you can think of. Pages of them. That's going to change your relationship with the choice you're going to make. And you're going to see that it really is your choice. You're not ever being forced to move in that direction. It's your choice. And that's where the power comes in, because it must be coming from you, consciously, for you to get the benefit of it. Whenever you think you have to do something, you don't. You get to do something. And you get to say which thing you get to do. It's your choice. That's where the power is. let's look at how this is working with your thinking and with your feeling. How are your head and your heart in this choice that you're going to make? Now, I'm not trying to say one is better than another. Actually, the best I know is when your heart and your head agree. When they're in agreement and they're unified around the choice that you're going to make. Because sometimes we think we need to go in a certain direction and our heart aches over it. Or we just give in to our emotions with it and our head's going, what are you doing? So it's our choice as to where we go. And having some agreement between your head and your heart will really help you know which choice to make and where to go with it. So often we don't use our intuition. I have had people say, I don't have any intuition. I don't know how to do that. Yes, you do. You just don't shut up long enough to get it. Because that is going on in your mind and you think somehow that's helpful. It's not. So shut off all that noise in your head and allow yourself to listen for a minute. This meditation is really good for this because silent, quiet meditation is simply a process that opens you to the ability to hear and to know. So if you do meditate, go into it with a question. What choice would be best for me? And let yourself get an answer. And it'll come. Something will come, some revelation. And it may not be in meditation. It could be that if you go to sleep at night with that question clearly in your mind, that when you wake up, boom, the answer's there. Let your intuition be a player in your life. Intuition is that process of knowing something you can't get to with your senses and you can't get to with your rational mind. It's like that still small voice that just jumps in and gives you something you didn't have before. I get those things all the time. Boy, that waking up in the morning before you're completely conscious, something gets said or thought of that changes the dynamics of what you're dealing with. Use your intuition. Let it help you because my belief is that intuitive voice is your higher self. It's your greater understanding of your life and your direction. And getting a little help from something that knows more than you consciously know couldn't hurt. And the last one on my list here is, can I be fearless in my choosing? I believe the thing that keeps us from being comfortable with choices is always about being afraid. And the thing that we're always afraid of is something that is unknown to us. So we're afraid of the unknown. We're never afraid of things we understand, things that we have had experience with. We're not afraid of those things. We're afraid of what's going to happen in the future. And a choice will take us in a direction and bring something into our lives in the future, but usually it could be the next day or that afternoon. So choices are always something that lead to outcome. And if we don't understand what that outcome could be, or we think that we could choose incorrectly, we get afraid. So I invite you to be fearless in your choosing, knowing without exception that you can always choose something else. So there's nothing that can hurt you. Nothing that can keep you from that full expression of your life, simply by not giving into it. I get afraid, and I have a little talk with myself. And I don't go looking for what I'm afraid of or why. What I do with that is say, thank you for the information. Whatever it is it's saying inside my head. Thank you for the information. I'm going to choose anyway. Yay, I win. You can do that too, no matter what. There's power in choice, whether it's easy or not. And I'm in the midst of some choices that I'm choosing to share with you this morning. A few weeks back, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. an aggressive prostate cancer. Now, don't freak out on me. One Sunday I was feeling kind of sick, but I came and gave a talk anyway. This was years ago. And I sat on a stool during my talk. And the next day, one of the practitioners called me and said, "People are saying you're dying. Don't play that game." What I'm told by several of my doctors, and what my own research says, is that if a man's going to have cancer, prostate cancer is one that can be handled better than most others. Yay! So I'm not having surgery. That one we nixed. So what I'm doing is a procedure that has already started. And the first stage of that was to take an injection that turned off my testosterone production. And I looked at the side effects and I said, "John, you're turning into a middle-aged woman." But actually the side effects haven't been that bad. Probably fatigue has been the toughest one. So I've been moving along with these different parts of the procedure. I haven't started the actual therapy yet. It's going to be radiation. And I'm taking a new kind of radiation therapy that requires that I do 45 sessions. I know. And up to 5 a week or less, and we're going through holidays, so there'll be plenty of weeks it'll be less. Which is going to take me into the middle of January doing this. So the last procedure I had was a CT scan, and when I did that, they had me sign some forms. And on one of those forms, it said that I had to sign this to demonstrate that I understood that I was going to be fatigued. Sounds pretty serious. Now, I had to sign on another one, and that was that I would lose my appetite. On that one, I signed quick and said, "Yay!" Yeah, so maybe I can start being able to button my jacket again, right? But the fatigue is interesting. And that was also part of that injection I got. Fatigue was the number one thing. And I want you to know that many days I've been downright tired. So is it going to get worse? Is it going to get more severe in my fatigue as I do this? I don't know. But here's what I have chosen. In my life, I have priorities of importance. And for the last couple of years, that's not true, for the last 30 years, my ranking of what's most important has been number 1, Barbara. Number 2, this center. And number 3, me. So I'm choosing to change those rankings. I'm going to, through this process of radiation, I'm going to put me at number 2. I'm not changing it with Barbara. And it doesn't mean that I don't love you. And it doesn't mean that you aren't incredibly important in my life. But I'm going to take care of me right now. So if I'm not here every Sunday, and I'll tell you right now, I won't be. There'll be somebody to give you an inspiring message. This thing will work out. I've already set up a really cool thing for the second week of November, second Sunday of November. And I'll tell you about that later. But I know that Reverend Cliff is willing to help, and we'll get whatever help we need to get me through this. And it's going to be okay. And everything I'm hearing from people that have done radiation therapy for prostate cancer come out the other end and are whole. So that's my plan. And I wanted you to know it. And I also want you to know I love you. Some of you I've known since we started this thing. And many of you I've met along the way, and you're all really important and have a special place in my heart. And I'm going to go take care of me. So know that with me. Keep me in your thoughts and your prayers. But don't see me suffering. Don't see this as a problem. See this as a glorious outcome where I come back triumphant over this thing. And all is well. I love you.